YouTube? This is Alex with another deck profile. Today I'll be doing Macro Spirits. This was just a quick deck I threw together for fun. It cost me 20 bucks, not much, and it's fun to play, and it's the first effective spirit deck that I've ever really seen play. So let's begin. Alright, so we're starting off with 3 DD Destroyers. He's a really good part of the deck. Once he's removed from the field, you can destroy one face-up card your opponent controls. Not to mention, if you can get him back, he'll be good sack fodder for the spirits. Next, 3 DD Scout Planes. Scout Plane is whenever it gets removed from play, you can summon him at the end phase in face-up attack position. You have to be careful when using him because your opponent can attack him and inflict some severe damage if you aren't careful. He's also great sack fodder for the spirits. Next we have 3 DD Sprites. Sprite is a really good part of the deck. You can remove one face-up monster you control and special summon it in attack or defense. And the monster that you removed comes back at the end phase. I think it's the end phase. No, it comes back during the next standby phase, which is useful, but if you remove a survivor or a scout plane, for instance, he'll come back at the end phase instead. So Destroyer is also good to use with this card because that's a free destruction right there. Next, I have 3 DD Survivors. DD Survivor is also, as this deck is based around, great sack fodder. Once he's removed from the field, you can special summon him at the end phase and face up attack or defense position. Well, when he's banished, I guess. He's sack fodder for the spirits, and he can easily become a high attack monster if your opponent's monsters are weakened somehow. Next, our run 1 Izanami. I don't really like this card. I don't know why I'm running her. Like I said, this is just a for fun deck. I thought she would run well. I was wrong. I can barely use her. So I'm thinking about taking her out of the deck and putting in something else. Like maybe a warrior leader or an assailant. Next I run 2 Yakshas. Yaksha's really good whenever he's normal summoned. You can return 1 set spell or trap your opponent controls. He has 1900 attack. At the end phase he comes back. You can set him for defense. He's one of the better spirit monsters. Next, 2 Fen Huangs. Whenever this card is normal summoned, you can destroy all set spell or trap cards your opponent controls, which is really awesome. He's a single sack. He has 2100 attack, which is the downside, but he's really good for his effect. And not to mention, if you sack a survivor or a scout plane and they get removed, they'll just come right back, so you can repeat this process as many times as needed, given your opponent doesn't stop their removal. Next, 2 Dark Dust Spirits. 2200 attack, spirit monster, single sack. His effect is whenever he is normal summoned, you can destroy all of your opponent's face-up monsters, which is really awesome. Once again, used in combo with Survivor and Scout Plane, really can't run into any flaws unless Scout Plane and Survivor end up in the graveyard somehow. Next, I run 1 Hinu Kagu Tushi. He's a double sack spirit monster with 2800 attack, so he's good on attack. He could be a game ender depending on when you use him. Sack the assailant, not the assailants, the survivors and the scout planes for him. His effect is whenever he inflicts battle damage to your opponent. Your opponent must discard their entire hand before the next draw phase. And if you run a card that can make this card do piercing, he'll be even more effective, even though it'll be a 1-turn deal. Spells, I run 3-Dimensional Fissures. I run 3-Dimensional Fissures in this deck as it is based around removing monsters, such as Scout Plane, Survivor, Destroyer, etc. It just removes all of the monsters that go to the grave. It banishes them instead. It's really useful in the deck. And, well, it's always a main component of macro decks. Next I run 3 Soul Absorptions. I run 3 soul absorptions because sometimes the deck can slow down and possibly stop working. So every time a monster is removed, well, a card is removed, you gain 500 life points. And in the end, this can really add up, especially if you use it in combo with Soul Release. So I run this card as a safety, just in case the deck doesn't take off. Next, I run 2 Soul Releases. Soul Release, like I said earlier, is great in combo with Soul Absorption. Remove 5 monsters, well, not 5 monsters, 5 cards from either player's graveyard. You can use this to get your scout planes back if they end up in the graveyard. Or if you're going to run cards that can bring back removed monsters like Different Dimension Escape, Different Dimension Return, etc. This will be a really good card. It could be a game ender depending on how you use it, and synonymous with other cards. Next, a Heavy Storm to clear up the back row. This is basically, aside from Fen Huang and Yaksha, the only way to clear out the back row, but this is probably the more efficient way, except for Fen. Next, I run 1 Dark Hole in case your field gets swarmed and you can't do anything about it. And if you have scout planes that are just harming you, you can Dark Hole. If they get removed, they'll just come back and your opponent loses all their monsters, which is really useful. Onto traps, I run 3 Macrocosmos. The engine behind the deck removes all cards from play that would go to the graveyard. Really great for the survivors and the scout planes and the destroyers to bring them back for sacrifice for the spirits. The engine of the deck. Next, I run 2 Bottomless Trap Holes. I would run Warning, but Warning's too expensive, and Bottomless Trap Hole seems to run a lot better for me. So I have no complaints about the card, that's why I run it. Next, I run 2 Ultimate Offerings. I run these cards because Soul Absorption will gain you all the life points you need to pay to use this card. That, and you can use multiple spirits effects if you summon them. And that's when Izanami can be useful, but I've never found her really that well. So you can sack a survivor for, say, Dark Dust, destroy your opponent's face-up monsters. Then you can pay 500 for Fen Huang and sack the Dark Dust to destroy all their set spells. You can pay another 500 for Izanami, discard a card, and add 1 spirit monster from your grave to your hand. So it's a really good card in the deck, especially to clear out your opponent's field, and that's why I run it. Next, I run 2-Dimensional Prisons. I just happen to have some extra money to pick up these cards. That's the only reason I have them. If I didn't have anything else, I'd be running, say, Compulsory. But these cards remove a monster from play that attacks you. So they're staples. They're really, really helpful. Next, a Torrential in case you need to self-destruct and blow up the field, in case the deck backfires on you. And a Mirror Force. The Mirror Force staple, destroy all your opponent's attack position monsters, really useful, nothing wrong with that. And that's the deck. You can run Exceeds in here if you want. It should be relatively easy to get 3-star, rank 3 Exceeds and rank 4 Exceeds, maybe even rank 6 if you use the spirits. I don't do that. I think personally that I can really mess up the deck, but it's just a for fun deck, so you can modify it as you want. Well, that's the deck. Thanks for watching, YouTube. I appreciate you donating your time. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. This is Alex signing off.